Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Okay. Okay. With the help of Hashem, we are learning ERUVIN DAF YOMI. We're going to continue learning the last two inquiries, the last two bayas that Abaya asked of Rabbah regarding the dinim of pasibarois. We're going to be learning about what happens, what's the halachic status of a partition, of a mechitza that was made on Shabbos. B'shoigeg, b'mezid, b'ratzain, b'oinus, whether we can rely on it, whether we say it's made on Shabbos, you cannot rely on it. We're going to have the unique shita, ultimately paskened by Rabbi Elazar, the Amoyra Rabbi Elazar, that we don't say, Doloi asu rabim umavatla mechitzas. We spoke this out already towards the beginning of the Masechta, that the halacha is that when you have mechitzas, but they don't impede traffic, the fact that there's a flow of traffic, that's mevatel those mechitzas. Rabbi Elazar disagrees with that shita. We're going to learn about what's going to happen if a person is standing in one domain, the water is in another domain. Is the person allowed to drink from that water? In other words, what's the fear? The fear is that even if the person, let's say, is bending over a well, he's standing in the Reshus HaRabim, he's bending over a well. If he would only lean back, then he's going to take the water from the Reshus HaYachid, which is in the well, which is the airspace above the well, to where his feet are, and he's going to do an act of carrying. However, we do say that if Roishai Verubai is over the well, that in itself is a reminder for him or for her that they should not move back to where their legs are. And therefore, they are allowed to drink. That's clear. The question will be, what's the halacha regarding an animal? And really, on Daf Chafam Beis, we're going to get clarity to that which the Mishnah said in the beginning of the Perek, that when you make the pasibarois, you have to leave at least enough space that at the roish and the roiv, the head and the majority of the animal should be within the pasibarois. However, the question is why? Why do we need for the animal roish v'rubai to be there? What is the case of the Mishnah? We're gonna see that there are various ways of understanding the Mishnah. Let me just speak out the Nakuda. We're speaking about a person who's giving the animal to drink by holding the drinking keli in the person's hand. Ubemela. The fear is that animals move around. So if the person takes the water out of the well and he's holding onto the bucket, if the animal were to move its neck or its mouth out of the pasibarois, if the animal were to move into the Reshus HaRabim, then there's a possibility that the person who's giving the animal to drink would also move the bucket to where the mouth is in the Reshus HaRabim as well. Then he'll do an act of transference. So this is really the reason why we want to have a larger part of the animal within the pasibarois, right, to lower the chances of such a thing to happen. The question is it enough? Maybe the Mishnah also means that not only does the person hold on to the keli with one hand, but he's holding on to the animal itself or to the halter of the animal itself with the other hand, preventing the animal even more from moving its neck out into the Reshus HaRabim. So these details will be discussed at great length on the Chafam Beis. And finally, we're going to have the Gemara Amar Rav Yitzchak Bar Abba or Bar Ami, that the whole heter of pasibarois, which is a huge heter, because really we are allowing for a mechitza to be called a mechitza, even though there's a lot more breach, there's a lot more opening, parutz is a lot more meruba al ha'omet. The reason why they allowed it was lo oile regalim, and really the details are lebehemas oile regalim. If people are traveling towards Yerushalayim and they have no animals with them, then they may not make a pasibarois. People also have to drink. So the words in the Gemara is that a person metapas va'oila metapas v'yoyret. which means a person is able to go into the well and drink from the well. Everyone has a different image of a well in their mind. Obviously, those wells were made in such a way. Like Rashi says that you can lean your hands and your feet on the walls of the well, and in a very easy way, go down, go to the water, drink the water, go back up. It was only made for animals. And Tosfos concludes the sugya that if a person is traveling with animals, once one is allowed to make the pasei berois for the animals, then a person can also drink. He doesn't have to krich into the well. But it's a heter made beikir in order for us to be able to give our animals water to drink, and a lot more. We are on the top of daf chaf amud aleph, the last word in the top line. Again, we're up to now the fifth boya that Abaye is asking from his teacher Rabba regarding the pasei berois. Oh, Freilach. Says the Gemara, boy minay Abaye mit Rabba. Chatzer shenichnasa. I'm sorry. Chatzer sheroisha nichnas lebein hapasim. So to facilitate, it's important to have the picture over here. So for those of you who have the picture, that's going to be of great help. Hope you can see this over here. Hope the Olam Chabad or can see it properly. If you can just make that larger and even larger and even larger. So what's going on over here? You have near a chatzir, you have a well, and they made pasei berois. Now again, as we just spoke at the end, you can't stop do this. But ba'ofen, where the well is taka on the path where people are going to Yerushalayim, and wherever you are allowed to do it. If you'll notice good, if you take a look at the picture, the area of the chatzir goes inside the imaginary mechitzas because they go within the two double boards on one edge. Now, what is the issue over here? The issue is like this. There are two houses that make use, or the more houses, two or more that are using the chatzir, they made an eruv chatzeres with themselves. But as we keep on learning, takana shleima hamelech, that for them to go and to carry from one reshus hayachid to another reshus hayachid, they can't unless they made an eruv with that reshus as well. The area of the well is open for everyone. It's not only accessible to the people that live in the chatzir. Any oil regel can use it. So it has more owners, more people have rights to it. No eruv was made between the bnei chatzir, and you don't even have with whom to make the eruv with the area of the pasei berois. So are we going to say that midrabanan they can't go and carry from the chatzir into the well, and nor can they take from the well into the chatzir? That was his question. Okay, it's different ownership. So Rabbi gave a gewaldic answer. So Amarlei, Rabbi tells Abaya, yes, you are allowed to carry. Why are you allowed to carry? Because when did Shlomo HaMelech and afterwards the Chachamim say that you have to make a eruv chatzeres between two different Reshuyas HaYachid, that if each one has owners, guys, the well is made mamish in the public. Halachically, we made walls around it. It was made for the public. It's interesting. We're going to say that no one is considered the owners of the well. No one. There is no ownership. And that comes out to be a kula. So no one needs to make an eruv with the area of the pasei berois. Gavaldik. And therefore, yes, you can carry from the chatzir to the well and back from the well, or from the area of the pasei berois. Not only the well, anything that's in the area of these within the pasim can be taken back into the chatzir. Now, this was a buildup. So now asks Abaya from his teacher, from Rabba, shtayim. Shtayim means instead of you having one chatzir that opened up, let's make the picture bigger and even bigger. Shtayim. Now, it's very important when the picture was made very well. Keshitas Rashi. If you'll notice that, forget about the well area. There is an opening in the wall between both chatzeros. And that is very important because in order for two neighboring chatzeros to be even allowed to make an eruv chatzeros, and for that to be effective, you need to have two preconditions. Number one, they are mamish adjacent. They are back to back. So you go from one into the other. Number two, there is a halachic opening from one into the other. What's a halachic opening? Any opening that is I think it was a tefach by a tefach. It was either a tefach by a tefach or 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim. Whichever one it was, there has to be a halachic opening. And you have that opening. And my friends, both of these chatzeros made an eruv one with the other. But here's the question. Who are the vast majority of people that are using the well? The people that live in the chatzer. Okay, true, yes, we just said it's open for everyone else as well. But they are the ikar ones that are using the well area. Now, guys, think about a mavi for a second. What did we mention already a few times? That when you have people that have adjacent chatzeros one with the other, aside of them making an eruv chatzeros, which everyone here made an eruv chatzeros with each other, question is, for you to carry now for 2 chatzeros, for different chatzeros to carry into a mavui, normally you have to make what we would call a shituv muvais. Again, that's not being made over here. That's not being made over here. Question is, can they carry now that it's not one chatzer, but now you have 2 chatzeros that are using the well? Maybe let's consider the well primarily from both chatzeros, because de facto they are the ones that make the most. They're there every week. The kavua, they use it the whole time. So now are we going to say that since the well goes to 2 separate chatzeros, true, each chatzer might have made an eruv one with the other, but they didn't make, there's no eruv made in that area of the well. That was his question. Shtayimai. So here, Amarle, so here, Rabba responds, Asur, that means they may not carry there. And he explained why they may not carry here. Not only is it Asur for them to carry to the well area, if they did not make an eruv amongst each other. Now, guys, that's clear because they're two different chatzeros. And if they did not make an eruv, so just like they cannot carry one to the other, nor can they carry into an area that is used by both. But the chiddush, the chumrah of Rabbah, as explained by Rafuna, is that this asur is even if the 2 chatzeros did make an eruv. Even if they made an eruv. Why? Because true, the emes is, like we mentioned, bein hapasim is an area open to all. Emes. But many people will confuse the bein hapasim area to any mavli. And what is the din by a mavli? That when you have various chatzeros, even if each chatzer per se made its own eruv chatzeros, but since they all are going into the common mavli, for them to be allowed to carry from the chatzer into the mavli or from the mavli into the chatzer, they also have to make a shituv muvais. That's not something you can do over here. Again, because the bein hapasim doesn't only belong to them; it's open to the public. So you're making a shituv with whom? So people might confuse this with a mavui, and people are going to think that just like you can carry into the bein hapasim area, so members of the chatzir can carry into a mavui area, even if they made an eruv, even though they didn't make a shituv. So therefore, the solution is they may not carry into the well area. Now, there's a big chiddush here, my friends, because appreciate what happened. When there is only one chatzir in the first case, Rabbi says that you could carry. Rabbi says that you could carry in the first case. Here, Rav Huna is saying that it's also even if both chatzeros made an eruv. Halachically, if both chatzeros made an eruv, they're like one chatzer, they're one partnership. So you would argue that if you make an eruv, it's like back to the first case. It's one chatzer going into the bein hapasim. But still, what Rabbi said, no, by one, everyone knows that it's one. The moment you have 2, when you have 2 chatzeros, so it becomes usher, like we mentioned, like zeta, that people are going to think that ki'il, like we mentioned, that you don't need to make as a shituv muvais. Okay. Now, or let me word it there. Let me say another nuance of it. Keep the picture up, doctor. People are going to think, what's going to happen if you don't have the breach between one chatzar and the other? If you don't have that breach, if the only way to get from one chatzar to the other would be through the well area, then for sure you can't use it. Again, why can't you use it? Because there's no shituv muvais. So for people not to make a mistake, that they are allowed to carry from one chatzar to the other through through the well area because people can't see properly that there's an opening, and therefore the Eruv Chatzeros that they made was effective. You can't carry at all into the well area like this. No one is going to end up carrying from one side into the well and then into the other Chatzer. So there's going to be no transference from one side to the other. Rava disagrees. Rava holds if Eruvai mutter. If they made an Eruv and there is an opening independent of the well area between one Chatzer and the other, so since they are allowed to carry from one to the other, it does become like the first case where it's only one Chatzer going into the Pasam area. Rabbi himself said you're allowed to carry. Okay, so Abai had a question. Abai got an answer by one Chatzer. When you have two Chatzeros, Machlokes between Afuna and Rava, and after, don't forget, Abai is now going to quote a Braisa to authenticate the Rava Shita. Had Abai known this Braisa, he never would have asked a question from Rava to begin with. Later he heard a Braisa, and the Braisa appears to be saying like Rava, Rava, Tiny Misayaloch, Chatzer, Sheroisha Echad Nichnas Lebein HaPasim Mutal Taltal L'Toicham, Mutal Taltal Lebein HaPasim Lebein HaPasim L'Toicham. Clear. If it's only one Chatzer into the Bein HaPasim, even though no Eruv was made to the Bein HaPasim area, doesn't matter. Abelstein, but if you have two Chatzeros that enter into a Bein HaPasim area, the Braisa says Asur. And now, clearly like Rava, if the two Chatzeros don't have an Eruv, but if the two Chatzeros have an Eruv with each other, so they become like one Chatzer. Once you become like one Chatzer that goes into a Bein HaPasim, you could transfer from that Chatzer to the Bein HaPasim and backwards, and therefore mut. Now the Braisa is so clear, so Lema, Teheve, Tiyufta, the Rafuna, so Amalach Rafuna, no, that Hassan, that the case of the Braisa. Now we need the next picture is the Hadran, the Arvan. Yes, there is the fear, Rafuna holds, that people won't know that there is an opening between one Chatzer and the other. They won't know that. They think that they are using the Bein HaPasim area to go from one into the other. And that is not good. Why is that not good? Because if two Chatzeros don't open directly one to the other, right? Then the only way you will be allowed to carry is by making a shituv muvais. Here you cannot make a shituv muvais. But if there is another opening, look now in the entrance of the Chatzeros, the wall that used to go all the way to the front broke in a little bit. So aside, like Rashi says, aside of the pathway from one Chatzer to the other that's deeper in, even when you're standing in the Reshus HaRabim or in the Bein HaPasim area, you can see that one area is connected to the other. You don't have to go through the Bein HaPasim area. So when people see that, then Afunas Maida, then they are allowed to carry, because the Eruv Chatzeros made them into one Chatzer into a Bein HaPasim you can carry. No one is going to think that there is no way of going from one into the other without going into the Bein HaPasim, because you can see that they could. As you can take a look at the picture, you're able to walk from one Chatzer to the other Chatzer without entering, before you enter the Bein HaPasim area. And that everyone understands is something that allows for an Eruv Chatzeros to be made. Okay. Now we're going to go into the sixth question and take the picture off. Like we spoke out when we began this Perek, the heter of Pasi Berois is dafke because there is mayim. That's why there is an issue of a boir, of a beir. And indeed, if the water dries out, whether it's because you only had a water hole, which is more common, even a be'er sometimes dries out. Now the question is, can people carry in that area? Does it continue to have a status of a Reshus HaYachid and not, I don't know, a Reshus HaRabim or a Kadmalis, depending where it was built? Because the heter, the tam of the heter, which is mayim, there's no mayim. And we had this issue already a few times, right? If something is valid when Shabbos comes in, we have this both in the good, and in by Muksa we had this a lot in the negative. Or we had Shabbos Goyremes just a few days ago. If Shabbos came in, it's already good, it stays good. So Rabbi responds, L'chumra, Klum nasas mechitza ela b'shel mayim. So therefore, mayim ein kan, mechitza ein kan. Wow. Look inside the second Tosfos. Tosfos just makes an observation that even though Abaye in many other places, and he quotes that Tzaddik Gimel, holds that Shabbos, Hoyel v'hutra hutra, once Shabbos came in and something was allowed, it continues that way. So Tosfos points out that not every case has to be the same. Over here, Abaye will be Moidem. He didn't challenge Rabba, he accepted it because Mishum Deleke Mechitzas. Here, the heter of Pasiberois is so great. You look at a Pasiberois, there's no Mechitzas, double boards. 13, according to Rabbi Yehuda, we are allowing over 13 amas of opening. Here, since there's no Mechitzas, even Abaye will be Mah. Okay. But Ravin, now based on that comes along Ravin. First case is the case of the sixth inquiry. Yakshumayim b'Shabbos. When Shabbos came in, there was water. During Shabbos, the water dried out. And then it rained at the Shabbos by Cholent. It rained, and now it got refilled. Ubo b'Shabbos, and now the waters returned on Shabbos. So now what do we say? Do we say, well, let's go with Rabbah. Mayim ein kan, mechitzas ein kan, but now the water came back. So can we re-establish mechitzas on Shabbos? Amalei Abaye, Yashru b'Shabbos leitibayalach, because the ba'ayminei demar, don't ask for the first step. That I already asked from my master, from Rabba. And like we just learned above, the sixth inquiry, and he told me the usher. Now you're having a new kasha, but you're adding, but now it rained and it got refilled with water. So bo nami leitibayalach. Because this is a classical case, the Havale Mechitza Asoi b'Shabbos. This is a partition that's being created on Shabbos. And V'tanya, Kol Mechitza Asoi b'Shabbos. Bein b'shoigig, whether it was done inadvertently, bein b'mezid, bein b'oines, bein b'rotzoin, Shema Mechitza, it is a Mechitza. So now that it rained again, yes, you could use the area of the Pasiberois and consider it as a bona fide Reshus HaYachid. Frag the Gemara, you're quoting me, the Braisa. You're misquoting the Braisa. The Braisa was made that statement, l'chumra, not l'kula. The Lav Itman Allah, Amar Rav Nachman. The Braisa is only Ela Lizraik. Lizraik doesn't only mean to throw, it means to carry. That if you built a mechitza on Shabbos, and now someone transfers something, Mirashus Arabim, to inside the mechitza area. So we are saying, since you built it, it's called a mechitza, now you're chayiv for hoitzah or for hachnasa. Abel l'taltel, but to carry within that area, in other words, l'kula, the Braisa never made such a statement, loy. So the Gemara says, no, not ignishgenoi. Ki itma de Rav Nachman, that qualification was only a mezid itma, in which he says that if the wall was built with mezid, then you can't rely on it l'kula. But over here, the rain fell. It's not a mezid. When the mechitzas were built, not b'mezid, then you rely on it not only l'chumra but also l'kula. Amar Abba Lazar, Hazerik lebein abasi berois chayiv shkoyach. Like, of course, now that we learned so much about pasi berois, it's a reshus hayachid. So of course, if you go from the reshus harabim and you throw in that area, chayiv. So the Gemara says, whether it's Amarle, they asked Rabbi Lazar, Pshita, because Ilav Mechitzahi Hechem Israel Malois. As you can say that Rabbi Lazar was not speaking about a case where there was a well. Doesn't matter. The fact that the Chachamim have a koyach when there is a well for oil legolim to be matred, that you can use it even on a rabbinic level, it proves that on a biblical level it has to have validity, and therefore l'chumra you're going to be chayiv. But says no. We need Rabbi Lazar. Tzricha the Avad Kein Pasiberois v'Reshus Harabim. Speaking about your mamish, if a guy made Pasiberois in the Reshus Harabim, it's still v'Zarek L'Teicha Yechayiv. Again, the Gemara says Nami Pshita, because Ilav de Ba'alma Mechitzahi. If not that Midai Raisa, guys, there of course there's a huge chiddush that the Chachamim allowed using Pasiberois by you not even violating a Darabanan, but they can't make up rules. That means it must be that on a Doiraisa level, it's always good. Because if it would not have been good, in a Reshus Harabim, Mi Doiraisa, so Gababoid, Hechim Yishrei L'Taltalei, And Rabbi Lazar is speaking about l'chumra, that if someone throws from the Reshus Harabim to inside the Pasibirois area, the Chayiv Chatos, which means that they violated an Isser Doiraisa, of course, on a Doiraisa level, even if you don't have water, right? So you can't use it in the Rabbanan, but it has a validity. Where it says, Loi. Chiddush is, now here we're speaking about something that is subject to Amachloikis, and we actually don't even pass it like Rabbi Lazar. That what? That Rabbi Lazar is speaking about a case that you build Pasibirois in the Reshus Harabim, and the road is going through the area of the Pasibirois. You don't even need a picture for this. In other words, what we mentioned this, my friends, when we began the Masechta, when we spoke, I think it was on Daf Vav or on Daf Zayin, the basics of the city ERUVIN, that whenever you have a bona fide Reshus Harabim that's going in through an area that halachically might be mechitzed off, but people are walking through the mechitza, like over here, then we say, no, that the Asar Rabim umavatl mechitzas. That was the Chiddush over here. That Rabbi Lazar was speaking about a case where the public road is going within the area of the Pasibirois. Even here you can argue Michael Mashmalan. So what is he telling you? That the loy Asar Rabim umavatl mechitzta, which is why it is considered a Reshus HaYachid, so Yechayiv. Well, that's a Chiddush. That's a Chiddush. But he already said it. And where did Rabbi Lazar make that statement regarding a Mishnah that we're going to have soon? This is the Mishnah, Daf Chav Beis, that speaks about this question of does a mechitza that does not impede, does not stop the public movement, is it called a mechitza? And that's the Mishnah. That Rabbi Yehuda Oimer, im hoysa derech Reshus Harabim mafsakton, that if the road is going through the Pasibirois, which is the picture, Rabbi Yehuda says, then you can't use that area as a Reshus HaYachid. Yisal kenol esdadim. You know what that means? Try this in America. You're not moving a well. You can't move a well. Make the road go around that area. It means on Shabbos, you're going to put up the cones here. You put up the cones and you'll make the traffic go around it, because if traffic goes through the area, you're done. The Chachamim disagree. And on that already, Rabbi Yechon and Rabbi Lazar, the Amoira, the Amrit Arvayu, Kan, meaning the Chachamim let you know the koyach of mechitzas, that if halacha says it's called a mechitza, even if it doesn't impede traffic, it's still called a mechitza. So Rabbi Lazar already said that Rabbi Lazar does not subscribe that Asar Rabim umavatl mechitza. So the Gemara says no, meaning Rabbi Lazar needed to repeat it, because if we only would have had that statement, that even though Rabbi Yechanan and Rabbi Lazar said the words kan who, kan the Chachamim paskin, they didn't say that they paskin like him. Kan, but maybe the Leishiralei. So Kamash Malan, kan this Firalei. Okay, so now the final question is, once Rabbi Lazar over here said that Hazoydik Lebein Pasei Berois Yochayev Chatos, and we know that Rabbi Lazar meant that even if you throw something in an area of Bein Habirois, where Rabbim is walking through, it's still called a Reshus HaYachid. Once he said that, then why did Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Yechanan have to say regarding the Machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim, Kan lo diyachal koichen shel mechitzos, right? So the Gemara says, who said Rabbi Lazar made two statements? He didn't make two statements. Rabbi Lazar only made one statement. And the other statement was understood by inference. In other words, Rabbi Lazar is going to the koyach of Pasibirois. Now, guys, one thing is important. No one is saying over here that if the Rabbim is going through it, that on Midrabanan you're good. We're not saying that. What we are saying is that l'chumra, if you have Pasibirois, midorais, it's called the mechitzed off area. And therefore, if someone carries from the Reshus Harabim into that area, or vice versa, they're going to be chayiv chatos. Okay, but again, it doesn't mean that he's saying that even lakula you can make use of it, because as we'll speak out later throughout all these sugyas, that when you have a biblical Reshus Harabim, we halachically we say that if the Rabbim is impeding if the mechitza is not stopping traffic, the mechitza is not a mechitza. I'm reiterating this is because whenever you have a city Eruv, whenever you have any Eruv, and Taket's Tzuras HaPesach, doesn't matter. I know Tzuras HaPesach, one might argue it's better than Pasibirois. No, we don't say that. We say that if the Tzuras HaPesach is being put within a bona fide Reshus Rabim, then the Rabim is Mevatel the Mechitzas. So every city Eruv has to function first by you somehow figuring out why this area is not a biblical Reshus Rabim, and that's not so easy in a big city. And then, if you put a proper Tzuras HaPesach in, then you got yourself a good Eruv. Okay. 2 dots on the bottom of the Amud. So the Nukuda we spoke out in the introduction. You have a well. You made Pasibirois. Now you can put those right-angled boards closer or farther. The farther away from the well, the more well area. How close can you put it? Since the whole kavana is to facilitate the drinking of animals, so the Mishnah says you have to at least leave enough space for an animal roishoi or roisha, the rubai, by the head and the majority of the body has to fit within these halachic mechitzas. Now you can't see them because you only have the boards on the corners, but make a line between one board and the other, and you have to have a minimum space. So now let's speak about people versus animals. Tanan Hassan, again, these are all Mishnayos from our Masechta. This is from DAF YOMI CLASS on Aliyah. The Mishnah is going to write, we're going to learn soon. Forget about Pasibirois. If your feet isn't Reshus Rabim and there's water in a Reshus HaYachid, can you drink from that water without going into that domain? Or the opposite. So the Mishnah says you cannot, neither way, nor second to last line, nor from a Reshus HaYachid, the Yishtem Reshus HaRabim. You know why? Because with one little movement, you might go back to the domain where your feet are. And then you transfer the water from one domain to the other. However, Elim came, the moment you make this extra unusual effort, like not only bending over, of putting your head and the majority of your body into the domain of the water, that will keep you mindful of the fact that you may not move back, and then you could drink water that way. Mamish, if you're walking down La Cienega and you're sticking your head and the majority of your body inside the doors of the shul, you can make a l'chaim. Daf Chaf Amid Beis. And v'chein, the same rule applies to a gas, to a wine press. So a quick chazara of the following rules. Number 1, midoy raisa, kaiving, trumas u'maisves. The chiyuv is only chal when the product is finished, when it's ready. When you are making wine, until a certain point, we'll learn that other times, there is a certain time in the beginning of the wine press process where it's not called a finished product, and therefore, midoy raisa, you don't have to separate trumas u'maisves. Step number 2, that Rabbanan said, even before the Gemara Malacha, you may not have Su'udas Keva. When it comes to wine, you can't have a proper drinking session. Midrabanan. But even Midrabanan, as a quick l'chaim, what we're going to call as a arai, right? A casual drink you can take. Same question. So I have a wine press and there's wine in there. And midrabanan, I know I'm not mechuyev, but midrabanan, I can have casual, I can't have keva. So if I only stick my head over, that's not called casual. That's how people drink. But the moment you bend over rosh v'rubai, so now it's so uncomfortable, it's so unusual, that position in itself will render your drinking into casual, gavaldik, into aray. So the chen legas, that if it's rosh v'rubai or gas, you can drink wine. It's not about how much you drink. It's about that position makes that whole drinking session called aray, not keva, and you can drink. Now let's go to an end of Mishnah. End of Mishnah. So says the Gemara, Gaba Adam clearly befedish ha amar d'bay rosh v'rubai. And then yes, even though your feet are in the Reshus HaRabim, if rosh v'rubai is in Reshus HaYachid, your drink is untahid. Question is Gaba Padam. Now I know it's our Mishnah, but we'll see different ways of learning our Mishnah. Do we say that what? Now we're speaking, my friends, to clarify the question. Why do you need to have Roisha Veruba Ben Apasim? Animals don't just stick their heads in the well and drink. They can't even get the water in the well. You need to have a person helping the animal. So the person is picking up the bucket. When you give animals to drink, one hand is holding the bucket. And like we mentioned, that's the whole issue. The whole issue is that if during the drinking, the pata will move its head into the Reshus Harabim, naturally you'll move the bucket with it. That's a problem, because the moment you move the bucket into the Reshus Harabim, now you made a hoitzah. So that's the reason why more of the animal has to be near the well in that domain to make it less likely for this to happen. But the question is, what is the case of our Mishnah? Is the case of the Mishnah is that you're holding onto the bucket? Or is the case of the Mishnah that you're holding onto the bucket and you're holding onto the halter, you're holding onto the animal, which makes it harder for the animal to stick its head out? Even if you're doing both, you need Roisha Veruba. There's so many different ways of understanding now the application of the Mishnah. That's the Kasha, third line. Gemara is going to clarify. Now there's two versions. The first one is more lenient, and the next one is more chama. If you are only holding onto the drinking utensil, but you're not grabbing onto the animal, no one held the animal, you held the halter, you held the rope around the neck, then since if you're not holding onto the animal, so it's easier for the animal to move out of that area, that the you have to have the head and the majority of the body inside the pasibirois. That's clear. But that will be good then, according to this version. What was my question? Akula. Hey, if the person who's feeding the animal is not only holding on to the utensil with one hand, but also also with the other hand holding on to the neck of the animal, maybe, since it's hard for the animal to move into the Reshus Harabim, you don't even need for the animal's Roisha Veruba to be within the Pasibirois. Guys, good, push it. It's lenient. Maybe even that lenient. So so he responded that Tenisua, right? Who's this is who asked who? I don't know who asked who. Okay. You see from this new Gemaras, this is a conversation between Misham and Raim over here, just to know. Who's the Amar Lay? Okay, Amar Lay, Tenisua, in our Mishnah. Ubelvad, Shetehei, Hapara, Roisha, Verum, Bifnim. The Mishnah says clearly, and Vishoisim. And as a given, and my love, that the case of the Mishnah is not only are you grabbing onto with one hand the keli, but also the nakat mana. Means even if you're holding on the nakat law, the nakat mana, even though you're holding on to both, you still need to have the area, enough area for Roisha Verubai. So the Gemara counters lav dafke loy. Maybe our Mishnah is only the nakat mana, the loy nakat law, which would mean that when you're not holding on to the animal, Roisha Verubai is good. Guys, that's a kula. Because we'll learn later a version that holds that if you're not holding on to the animal, that's not enough. And if you're not, and if you're holding on to the animal, you don't even need that because you're holding on to the animal. Says the Gemara, how can you say that? How can you say that's the Mishnah? No, the Hatanya, it says in a Braisa clearly otherwise. That a person may not fill up water. The yitain, the Shabbos, and give it. Lifnei behemtoi, guys, doesn't mean you're putting the bucket on the ground. Lifnei behemtoi means you're holding it in your hand in front of the animal. You can't do that. You cannot give water in a certain case and hold the keli in front of the mouth of the animal. You can fill up water, and you have to put it in a trough or put the keli down. And then the hishoisem me'elel. You b'chlal can't feed. It's mashma that we are always afraid by an animal. The animal might move into another domain. You're going to run after the animal, and you're going to end up carrying. So how can you say that our Mishnah is speaking about a case that you're not holding onto the halter, yet the Mishnah is allowing you to give the animal to drink when the Braisa says you may not? So says the Gemara, nah, that Braisa is a unique case. And let me show you, my friends, this is the unique case. Guys, don't be afraid of the Amud. The whole Amud is going to be a repetition of this back and forth in a different verse. So take a look at the picture. I want you to appreciate one Nakuda that's not so easy to see. That in between the pasim near the barn, the pasim don't touch the barn. So if the area outside is, let's say, a Reshus Harabim, so then there is a Reshus Harabim that is really going in between the innermost poles and the barn. So the animal is in a Reshus HaYachid. But there is a window in the Reshus HaYachid. And the window goes over a trough. Now, guys, a trough, as long as the walls are 10 tfachim high and the inside area is 4 by 4 tfachim, the trough itself is a Reshus HaYachid. Let me go more than that. The ear space above the trough is a Reshus HaYachid. The area in the Bein HaPasim is a Reshus HaYachid. Is a Reshus HaYachid. Okay, so what is the Brisa telling you? A person would want to take water out of the well, forget about putting it in the trough. The person might want to give the water under the mouth of the animal, to hold on to the keli. And you know what? There'll be nothing wrong with that. Even if the person's feet will go closer to the barn, outside the Bein HaPasim area, which means the person's feet will be in a Reshus Harabim, it's still theoretically not a problem. Why not? Because since the Bein HaPasim is a Reshus HaYachid, all of the ear space over the trough is a Reshus HaYachid. So the person is taking the water from a Reshus HaYachid, going over a Reshus HaYachid, going under the mouth of the animal. There should be no fear. This is a case where the Brisa says you may not do so. That the Ebus is in the Reshus Harabim. You see, that's why I'm mentioning Reshus Harabim, because outside the Pasim area, even the area that's going towards the barn, until the barn is a Reshus Harabim. And if it's 10 Tvachim and the inside of the trough is Rechav Dalet,
Rabbi, how are you allowed to build your trough in the Reshus Harabim? How does that even work?
That's a kasha that you can ask. How did the city allow you to do? You did it so close. You did it. Doesn't matter. So Danny's making a point that maybe when it comes to building a sukkah, we have these dinim where the karka is nigzelis, karka ain't nigzelis. That's the case. And one part of the trough is in Bein HaPasim, and therefore theoretically you can take water from the well. You can hold it in your hand as long as it goes over the trough area, the animal can drink from it, even if your feet go in the Reshus Harabim, because the water was never transferred. However, this is what the Brisa is saying, you may not do so. And therefore you have to pour it in the trough. Guys, it's a very cute, in the Bach, and at least by me in the bottom, you have a picture. Same picture, just a little bit from my generation, not the newer generation pictures. Now that Gezeda, here's the issue. That Dilma, Chazil, Able is the Mekalka. You might notice that the trough itself, I think this answers Danny's question. The trough is not a proper cement trough. It's a shmatadik something. And could be up, so wall is getting ruined. And you have to adjust, you have to push it. You have to adjust it. Okay, and what's gonna happen when here you go, Danny. So no, it's not a building. It's a trough. It's a keli. And you're going to adjust it. When you're going to adjust it, you need both of your hands. If you need both of your hands, what are you going to do? You're going to put the bucket down into the Reshus Harabim. You're going to want to adjust it. And doubla, you're holding onto the bucket with you. And then you're going to put it in the Reshus Harabim. So therefore, the Mishnah can be speaking about a case that you're not holding onto the animal's neck. Look at the leniency. When you're holding onto the animal's neck, maybe you don't even need the Reish Veruba. The reason why our Mishnah says you need the Reish Veruba is because you're feeding the animal without holding onto the neck. The Brisa says you may never feed the animal. No, you may only never feed the animal if there's a chash that you might put the keli down because there is a Reshus Harabim area between the well and the animal. Says the Gemara, hold on. Chachamim make a gzeira because they are afraid that maybe you'll end up violating an Isur D'Oraisa. This scenario that you painted, even if that were to happen, you're not violating an Isur D'Oraisa. Why not? Why not? Because we had this klal so much in the last Masechta. Hoitzah is Akira and Hanachim. And the act of an Akira has to be done Malachas Machshavas with the intent of transferring. If a person made an Akira but the person lifted something up in your house and you lechatchila had in mind you're putting it down in another corner in the house. Only later did you change your mind and you carry it outside. Even though you de facto made an akira, then you made a hanacha, you're not chayv chatos. Here the person was going to take the bucket and go over the trough and put it under the mouth of the animal. You did not intend to make any yotzah. Even if, because you wanted to fix the trough, you forgot and you put it down with a shus harabim, you're not going to be chayv anyways. So why would we make a gzeira for something that even if it happens, it's only an issur d'rabbanan? Right? We don't do that. Why? So the Gemara amends the Gezeira. You're right. The theory is not you're going to put it down. The theory is that after you put it down, you're going to pick it up. Then secondly, you're going to see that the avos needs a little bit of an adjustment. We're speaking not about a tikkun mana. You're not violating anything. It's just it's a bowl for an animal that needs to be straightened out. And you're going to put it under the shus harabim. So far, you didn't violate an isur d'oraisa. But now you're going to pick up the bucket, and you're going to give your bucket to the animal. That's a proper, you're going to put it down on the edge of the trough. You're going to put it down on the shus hayachid. Because and now the kama ayale and the shus harabim and the shus hayachid. So the first version has it that if you are holding on to the halter of the animal, you don't even need rosh merubai. Our Mishnah is where you're only holding on to the bucket. And therefore, you need to have rosh merubai, and that works. Guys, Ika da Amri, everything is one step more mechumra. Everything goes up a notch. Gaba Adam, this is going back. I just don't know who's speaking to who. The Gemara doesn't say. At least I'm not chopping. Right? Maybe it's a hemshech from before. I don't know the Amar list.
It says the Bnei Yeshiva was saying to Rabbi Eliezer.
Now, where did he get Rabbi Eliezer from? We're not there. Rabbi Eliezer or the Amar Rabbi Lazar?
Lamed Aleph.
Okay, say that. Baruch Hashem. Living and learning. So here, everything is going up a notch. Let me chop my place inside again. God the Adam by the Mishnah that we have enough tzaddik tests, and clearly the sagale b'rosh merubai. Because a person will remember the fact that I have to inconvenience myself. It's a continual reminder. Be careful. Don't step back. But here's the question. Maybe rosh meruba is not enough. And now let's further qualify the question. The Bnei from the Bnei Ayishim. If the person is not only holding on to the bucket, but also hopping on, holding on to the animal, according to this version, you need rosh meruba. You need, not like before, but that's enough. Like the my question is, if you're only holding on to the mana, but you're not holding on to the animal itself, maybe rosh meruba is not even enough, because the moment the animal moves, and it's free to move, you might move the bucket with the animal, and now you'll transfer it. So, and now the same thing now. Amalei, and you saw from our Mishnah, the Mishnah says clearly, my love, that our Mishnah is also speaking about a case that you're holding on to the mana, even though you're not holding on to the animal, and rosh meruba is enough. So the Gemara says no, that our Mishnah only allows rosh meruba because you're holding on to the mana and to her. And how can I mistabre? Now the Braisa is l'chu'ura araya that will refute, because the im knock it mana, the loy knock it law. How can you b'chlal give to drink to an animal? Can you ever on Shabbos put a bucket of water under the mouth of the animal? When we learned in a Braisa clearly l'yamala adamayim lifnei behemtai. Lifnei behemtai means holding onto the keli. You can't do that. You have to pour the water into something else. Avol mamali from a well, but you have to be shoifech, and only then do you shoyfech well. So the Gemara says, no, that ha'itma law, if you just had above, that Braisa is the unique case of the picture. And therefore the trough area and the ear space above it is a bonafide reshus hayachid, and one part of the trough is going inside ben hapasim. Then there is a reshus harabim area between the ben hapasim and where the animal is standing. And the person would want to take the bucket and move it over the trough under the mouth of the animal, and really it should be good. But here the Brisa says we are afraid that you might notice that there's something wrong in the Avos, and you're going to come to fix it. And when you come to fix it, you're going to need to use both of your hands. If you're going to be holding onto the bucket, when you're taking the bucket with you, you're going to end up placing it down. Ooh, and you say, place it down. Says the Gemara, that can't be the reason of a gezeda. We don't make a gezeda. If you do that, you only violate a rabbinic. You don't make a gezeda to prevent you from violating a rabbanan. If you pick up a keli in your house with the kavana to put it down in the house, akira not for hoitzah, then you changed your mind and you took it outside. You violated the rabbanan, but you're not chayiv d'oraisa. So clarifies the Gemara. Ella, the fear is zinin the mesakele. You're going to put the bucket down, which, by the way, you violated the rabbanan. We're not excited about it, but then something worse is going to happen. Now the bucket is on the ground in between the possum area and the barn. You're going to pick it back up, and now you're going to put it on the walls of the avos for the animal to drink from it. Now you made a hoitzah. Now you made a hachnasa from the Reshus HaRabim to the Reshus HaYachid. Okay, it's interesting that from now, the Gemara is not addressing the Ikad Amri, which is very machmir. We're going back to the first version. The first version, right, had a havamina that if you're holding on to the animal with one hand, you don't even need the Rosh Verubay. That was the question. Maybe you don't even need that. So for that, Toshima, let me show you. It says in the Braisa, Domo, Rosh Verubay mibafnim. If you have Rosh Verubay, then Oifsin mibafnim. Oifsin, my friend, does not mean, Oifsin means that camels were force-fed before a long journey. The act of force-feeding an animal, we're not going into the Tzar Balachaynish, I'm just going into the fact, is you only succeeded if you grabbed onto the animal, because you're forcing the animal to do something that the animal doesn't want to do. So force-feeding the animal means that you're holding onto the food with one hand, you're holding onto the gummel with the other hand, and you are only allowed to do it if Roshoi Veruba is inside the Pasibarois. So here you see that even when you hold on to the animal, you still need Rosh Veruba. Force feeding or evos command and nevertheless, so that should answer the boya of the first version. So Amar Rav Acha, Bar Rav Huna, Amar Rav Sheshes, no proof from there at all, because Shani Gamol, since a camel's neck is long, and the whole fear is that during the eating or the drinking, the animal will move its neck, and you naturally. You're going to put the eating keli, you're going to walk it under the animal. So you're going to end up transferring it. A gummel's neck will move more than a para, maybe only by the gummel, even though you're holding on to the gummel, you need Rosh Verubay, but maybe by the para, you don't even need that. No proof. Another final attempted proof. Tashema from a Braisa, behema, not a gummel, a behema. You can force feed it. See, clearly, same thing. Force feeding means you're holding on to the animal. And nevertheless, okay, so the Gemara says, because this second Braisa, even though we use the word behema, it also only refers, maybe it only refers to a gamel. Hold on. If there are two Braisas and they're both speaking about the same gamel, then one is not needed. The fact that you have two Braisas means that the one of behema is any animal, even a para. Says the Gemara, where they learn together. If two Braisas will learn together, one speaks about gamel, the other speaks about a behema, for them not to be extra superfluous, it means that the second one is even any animal. But since they're not taught together, I'll argue that only by a gamel you need to have Rosh Verubay, and Tanya Nami Hachi, Gamel, clearly, even Rosh Verubay. We're just proving that a gamel is unique. Bottom line is, we don't have a solution to this baya. It could be, let's go to the first version, that when our Mishnah spoke about the need of a potter being Rosh Verubay, that's only when you're not holding on to the potter. Maybe if you have a pasei b'ra'os and they're even closer to the well, and only the mouth of the animal is in there, maybe if you grab onto the animal and you grab onto the bucket, you can feed the animal nonetheless. And now let's open up. You have a few more minutes, guys. We already spoke it out in the intro. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak bar Ada, in the side you have from the Rosh, bar Ami. You should know that, we learned on Amad Aleph that on a biblical level, the Pasiberois are Machitzes, Shkoyach. With Rabbanan, it's such a kula. So, like, who through Pasiberois, Elo Oile Golem Bulvad. You know, it's mashma from this expression, he's speaking about people. So the Gemara says, Tanya, no, and by the way, in that latter statement, we don't even mention oil or golem. So the Gemara clarifies, put them both together. That my behemas oil or golem, because people have to go Aliyah Regel, and people have to give their animals what they drink. So they may do, so midrabanan, even midrabanan, you can rely on it. Avol Adam, daf chafal from Medalef, if you only have people coming with you to Yerushalayim, even if you're oil regel, and you're camping on the side of a road, don't build any possibilities. You have to drink. You have to drink. Well, first of all, we just learned Rosh Hashanah, you're over the well. But you don't even need that. Metapas v'oil, metapas v'yoyed. Climb. I don't know why. Normally, if you have a well, first you have to climb down, right? Then you have to climb up. It's like the question that they had on the Kotzka about the Cholam of Yaakov Avinu. Like the Seder is the opposite. Akasha. So look inside Rashi. Metapas means we expect, guys of us Hasidic Yidden that barely move. I'm just kidding. I'm saying that you should be able to imagine. Can you imagine yourself climbing down the wall of a well? So Dashi oiches v'yadav v'raglav v'ksalim, and go in there. V'nichnas and v'yoyse metapes. V'nichnas v'yoyse. Then Rashi touches metapes means place in the Alta French, krapir, krichen. I don't know. Okay. So guys, Tosfos adds something very important. And I'm just going to have a few lines, 9 lines from the top of the Amid, and the top Tosfos. Tosfos says that it's not pshat that a person may never take water out of the well now that you have pasiberois. Inami, one approach, that if there's a chevra traveling without any animals, that is what Rabbi Yitzchak is saying is you can't make pasiberois. But if you're going with animals, and therefore you can make a possibility. Now that you have it, now even the Adam can make benefit of something that was made lechatchila for a behema. The ganze avodah of Isapcha, right? Once something is done for the behema, then the person also benefits from it. God willing to be continued.
Rabbi. What about a case where he's traveling with animals, but it's not for oil regel? So
they were not matin. Clear. The fetish.
So they would build these pasin. They were only allowed to be used those 3 times a year, and only if you're traveling with animals, then you could use it. Otherwise,
only because a big part of Jewish life is going to the Beis Hamikdash. Yeah, it was a regular trip that people made. Correct, and that's why you have a whole pedic speaking about it. Correct, but only in that circumstance, 3 times a year. You have hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of Jews making this trip and relying on it. It's an important topic, but only for that circumstance, according to Rabbi Yitzchak.
So they definitely don't say loy plug.
They definitely don't say loy plug, and even though we learned today on Amad Aleph that on a doiraisa level, pasi b'roi should always work. If not, how come the Chachamim make up a b'samachitz? You can't make up dinim. But normally you would be machmer. Here they allowed, so to say, the din to stand. Guys.